Readers and writers, what are you reading these days, and what lessons can you learn from it to apply to your own writing? It's Sam with a video. I will answer those questions for myself in just a moment. I'm here at my house. I am pre-recording this one. I usually try to do these live because I like the interaction. But I told you guys in videos I am going to be out of town, actually out of the country. When this one airs, I'm going on a trip to Indonesia to visit a few of the people groups that my work works with. It's a work trip. We work with people groups overseas, and I work for a nonprofit. And so I'm going to get to go on a trip and see some of these groups, which is great. I'll tell you more about it probably after I get back. I do want to do a video talking about the kind of writing I do for my work and just how that can apply to. But I'll have more to say after I get back. But when you see this, when this airs, so when I'm filming it, I leave tomorrow. When this airs on Friday, I'll probably be just about arriving to Indonesia because it's like a 24-hour trip flight. So anyway, that'll be fun. I mean, it'll be hard and challenging, but an exciting adventure. We've got a layover in Tokyo, and then we're arriving in Jakarta, and then we'll see what happens. So that'll be fun. I'll tell you more about that later. Tokyo was my brief segue or vague segue into what I'm reading because I just finished this book. It is called Silence by Shūsaku Endō, if I'm saying that right. It's about Christian missionaries in Japan in the 1600s. It is fiction, though it's based in real history, but the writer wrote it in the 1960s. So it's based on events that were like 300 years old at that time, but at least based in historical events. Good book so far. Oh, I finished it. So good book, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you what I thought about it. I was turned on to this book by one of my professors. I've shared this before. Dr. Karen Pryor. She's getting big in literary circles and stuff. So if you're into that kind of thing, look her up. She's got some good books. She wrote this one called On Reading Well that I read a few years ago, where she kind of goes through some of the books that shaped her most and different virtues and such we can learn from them. So I read this book a couple years ago. I don't remember. And I've kind of realized that almost any book Dr. Pryor recommends is a book I want to read. So then I heard other people talking about Silence too, and I added it to my list. So I finally got to read it. There was a movie that came out 7 years ago, Martin Scorsese, and did well. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I want to watch it now that I've read the book. So yeah, I'll tell you about it. It's a good book. It's a heavy book, as you might guess, if you didn't know already. If you knew nothing about it already, it's a heavy book. It's Christian missionaries in Japan. The missionaries themselves are from like Brazil and Portugal and stuff. So they're not Japanese, but it's in Japan. And there's heavy persecution during the 1600s. Like there's people imprisoned and killed violently for their faith. I will give some spoilers for the book, so I mean it's been out for a while. So, but if that bothers you, then just stop watching and go read the book instead. But I'm going to tell you some of the plot. But yeah, so yeah, the missionaries are being persecuted. The main missionary, the narrator, or well, actually he's narrator for part of it, and then does switches to the third person. But his name is Sebastian Rodriguez, and he gets he gets captured around the middle of the book and is kind of imprisoned for most of the rest of it. So yeah, this is spoiler, but so it's about him kind of wrestling with his faith and trying to maintain that, and under persecution as they do everything they can to get him to renounce it and turn against his faith. So it's a good book, but it's not like a beach read, is what I'm saying. It's good in the sense that like the movie Oppenheimer or like Schindler's List or probably any World War II movie is good, because it's heavy. I mean, it shows you the reality of the darker side of life and of hardships that these people endured. It's not in the sense of like just a fun like I don't know, Star Wars movie. It's not something like it's not like, hey, I'm bored, I have a few hours to kill, let me put on Silence and just relax. No. Good book, but heavy, thought provoking. Emotionally taxing and all that stuff. So keep that in mind if you read it. I think you should read it, but you got to be in the right mindset. What some people might say, it's not something you can easily. It's not light reading. I actually I went to the doctor's office and I went to like an international missionary doctor because it's kind of with my work I was able to do that for my upcoming trip. And I was reading this book in the waiting room, and the doctor said something like she loved the book. She actually spent time in Japan herself, but she was like, I can't watch the movie because I assume it's just too much. I haven't seen the movie yet. I want to, but yeah, I imagine it's a lot. So yeah, heavy book. Be prepared for that if you read it. And honestly, this is going to be more spoilers, but it's a bleak book in some ways. This will be a spoiler, but I kind of knew it already because I read Dr. Parr's summary of it. The priest Rodriguez. They actually when they have him in prison, they don't torture him physically much. I mean they argue with him and try to get, like, I guess, reason with him and convince him to change his ways, but they don't physically torture him. They torture the people around him, like the other Christians in the village and such, and use that to try to get him to renounce his faith. And what they want him to do is there's this image of Jesus, like I guess an image that at one time was held sacred, and you put it on the ground, and people are supposed to trample on it to show that they're rejecting Jesus or whatever, and they want him to trample on it, or else they're going to keep torturing and killing people. And this is a spoiler, but I knew it already from Dr. Parr's book. Toward the end, he does trample on the image. There's another priest who's a character in it a former priest who has also given up his faith or at least trampled on the image in the face of torture, and now Sebastian, the main character, does that too toward the end. And so I was kind of wrestling with that. So the author Endō was a Christian himself, as a Catholic. So it's not like he's celebrating like, oh yes, faith is defeated and now those missionaries are gone. No, he's a Christian himself, and so from his perspective, the priests will be the good guys probably, and yet the good guys don't win. He gives up his faith, and it's not even like, here's an example. I love The Crucible by Arthur Miller, and that one was like the main character sticks to his convictions in the face of persecution and is killed for it at the end, but it's still like a victory because he stuck to what he knew was right, and he was a martyr basically. And I love that because it's a powerful ending. But this isn't even that. This is like he does give in, and he is. And actually, after that, they release him, and he's allowed to live out his days in Japan in a relatively peaceful and normal way. But he has this hauntingness of he's he has this guilty feeling. He still believes in Jesus, I'm sure, but he at least did this outward symbol that said he was rejecting and trampling on Christ, and now he has to live with that. He's not really living the life of a priest anymore. And so I've struggled with where I stand on that, like whether the ending, whether I like the ending or not. I mean, I was trying to make sense of it. I was trying to look for the redemptive value. And I know not every book has to be redemptive. Again, sometimes there's very scant moments of hope or victory or whatever. I wanted to get the book a 5 out of 5 because the writing was beautiful and the themes were beautiful, and I don't give 5 out of 5s very sparingly on my Goodreads account. But the ending, like, I'm not saying I hated it. I'm just saying I'm still working through it, and I'm still not maybe entirely certain what to make of it. And so maybe for me it's only a 4 for now. But maybe if I think of it over time, or if I ever read it again, I could appreciate it more. It does, and on a hopeful note, a little bit like Rodriguez, even though he's given up his faith and he's living a normal, non-priestly life now, or, I mean, he still has faith, but he's done this outward action that shows that he doesn't have faith, or whatever. It says something at the very end, like, even though there's outwardly, the circumstances don't give you much hope, but the author gives a hopeful perspective on it. I mean, it may be subtle, it may be not much hope in the face of the darkness he's facing, but he does say something like, now he loves Jesus in a better way that he couldn't have before. That now that he's gone through this, and Christ was suffering with him, and it's like, what was the other thing? they said like Christ would still be glorified, and people would still show, I guess, like would still put his life on display, Christ's life on display, even despite human failings, kind of thing. And that was a hopeful note, even though outwardly there was not much room for hope there. So, again, the author is a Christian, writing from a Christian perspective. I'm a Christian writer, if you didn't know that already. But so, in that sense, there's hope for the good guys, even if it's not really over in the book. There is, are small themes of hope in the midst of suffering and trying to maintain your faith. So, really good book. I'd still recommend it. I know it's a literary classic, so it probably deserves a 5 out of 5. I'm just still wrestling with it myself, and maybe not there yet. But yeah, I recommend it for anyone, and I mean, for anyone who's prepared to deal with that subject matter in a serious way, because it is heavy and hard. But this can be a good book. I mean, it's a good book for many reasons, but I try to give a writing application for dealing with heavy subjects, like whether it's loss of faith or suffering or anything like that. Sometimes we need stories like that, and sometimes they don't always end happily, and they don't always end with the good guys winning, and they don't always end with much hope. I mean, if you're a Christian and you believe in Jesus coming back and making everything right again, then there will be hope in the future. But the end of this story, it's not always hopeful, and sometimes we just have to live in that suffering and live in that place of uncertainty and unresolvedness, and that's true for life. I could go into a long thing about that. I won't right now. Also true for your characters when you're writing, depending on the tone you're going for and the kind of story you're going for. Not everything needs to have a clear resolution all the time, because that's not always the world we live in. So just think on that. I've gone over my self-imposed 10-minute limit, so I'll let you go. But yeah, Silence by Shūsaku Endō. Check it out. Good book, really thought-provoking, worth a read, and have a great weekend. Thanks everyone for listening. Bye.